I'm Rachel from Bray, and we're here at Karsten's Ace Hardware or Karsten's Feed and Pet, and we're going to talk about items when you are bringing home your new equine, really truly your long ear. Yes, a lot of these things are going to work for your horse too, and if it's going to work for your donkey, it's going to work for your mule. There will be some exceptions for tack, but the only tack we're going to talk about today is going to be halters. These are just the basic items that we need to bring home our new companion, our new best friend. One of the first things you're going to need when you bring home or are preparing to bring home your new long ear, I'm probably going to end up saying donkey throughout this because that's kind of where we're focusing. And like I said, what works for your donkey will work for your mule. And truly, when it comes to these basic items, will work for a horse as well. One of the first items you're going to need are buckets, water buckets and feed buckets or feed pans. We're going to go over some of those different options. There are a ton of selections here, so I'm going to start and kind of work my way down this aisle. These used to be rope handle buckets. I like to see that they're plastic now, so the horses or donkeys or mules can't chew through those ropes. I've had a couple who have. These ones are kind of small, even for your minis for water. For food, these work great, especially for a mini. It keeps the hay in. It keeps, if you're doing a little bit of supplements, soaked pellets, psyllium, these work really well. But for water, they're a little small. I like them for a travel water bucket. Not going to be my first choice for at home. Great for food though. As we move down the aisle, there's going to be many other options. Most of these aren't going to work for water, and yes, there are still bigger options even outside. These metal pans, a lot of people use them for feed. I find here in Arizona, these get way too hot. They're going to just bake in the sun, and your animal's nose is going to touch that when they're eating. These are not my first choice. I also don't like that if they were to step through them, it's going to create a sharp metal edge. These aren't my first pick, but I do know people who use them. I like, this is a little small, but this one is handy to grab. These are little flex rubber buckets. Even though they're dark, they're going to get a little hot. If your animal steps on them, they're just going to flex. Eventually, sometimes sitting out in the Arizona sun after a couple of years, they might get a crack. They're not going to hurt your animal. They're not going to get too hot. This size down here, this is a great one for doing any of your supplements. I will do psyllium and a little bit of Timothy and Bermuda pellets in here. For my animals personally, I really like these, like I said, because they flex, because they're super safe. They're also really easy to clean, and they have a low profile. A lot of long ears really don't like their eyes covered for any bucket. They want to be able to see and have a full line of sight. These hanging buckets, not my first choice for bringing things at home, but they do work great for some supplements. They might be what you need for occasional things. I've known people to put salt in them. These bigger ones used to be rope handle buckets. I'm probably going to inevitably always call them that. These are really nice for water. For your miniatures, I do probably one per miniature. I'd have two at least for one standard. If you've got a couple of standards, it depends on how often you're going to be filling those waters. Even though they are smaller than some of the large stock tanks, what is nice about them is they are easy to clean. One thing to note, especially with these BLM donkeys, is they tend to like lighter colors. So I would be going for your orange, your green, or your blue. Perhaps the pink, it is very light in color, but it also seems very bright. But the animals don't really, you have to think about the colors that an equine sees. They don't really see pink. It's just going to be kind of grayish. So that could be a great choice as well. Again, these buckets, these flat back ones, great for traveling. You don't really need them for in the stall, in the pen, in the turnout. I do use these for traveling. I use the smaller size if I need to carry or mix feeds, but we don't really leave them out. These are travel or in the trailer offering water as we're going. So again, these bigger buckets for water, or if you want to go and get the really large stock tanks, those will work as well. Do be mindful of the height. Think about, can they reach the bottom of that? Even though a donkey doesn't want to necessarily put its head all the way down, we do need to be mindful of our animal's height. We were talking about different styles of water dishes earlier, and I mentioned that there are stock tanks that you can get. And you can see here we've got a really big, there's a pool size one here. And then inside of that one, we've got, these smaller guys. And behind me over here, we've got kind of your classic 150 gallon. You do see these a lot. A mini has a really hard time getting into this. If you have minis, no. Standards and mammoths, maybe. Mammoths, maybe. Standards, maybe. Some of my standards are a little bit smaller. They do have a harder time getting to the bottom of these. They're a little bit harder to clean out. Some donkeys will play in them. You might run out of water a little bit faster. Horses play in them a little bit more, but that is plenty of water. A lot of people do like to use these ones. This is really good. It's a low profile one. Again, some donkeys do get weird with darker colored water dishes, so you can find other brands. These are Rubbermaid, so they're always going to be this black gray color. Other brands such as High Country Plastic do carry blues, tans, greens, and there are galvanized. Galvanized is choice. It's not my favorite, but there are people who use them, which is fine. And of course, then there's these big ones. This is appealing because this is a lot of water, especially in an Arizona summer, but it is going to be pretty hard to clean this out because you are going to need to clean your water tanks. Any type of scrub brush that works for you, such as the scrub brushes you would use for your bathroom, not ones you have already used for your bathroom, new ones, those will work great to clean it out. You also might see people throwing goldfish in their water tanks, but I'm here to tell you, as somebody who also did aquariums and aquatics for a long time, goldfish are very dirty fish. They're actually a little bit more of a brackish water fish. They're very dirty. They're not great at eating mosquitoes. They don't eat algae. They're not going to keep the algae out. In fact, they're going to dirty your tanks pretty quickly. You don't have a filter for those goldfish. They actually get pretty big. Goldfish and koi are related. Not a good water management practice. Keep the goldfish out of your tanks. We talked about several different types of water containers, those buckets that used to have rope handles, the stock tanks. There's one more type that you might see, and I'm going to be honest with you, the answer is no. The answer is no for a couple different reasons, but let me show you what they are. They are these automatic watering systems. In fact, right here you can see 3 different types: this metal, plastic, and of course floats. The reason we say no to these in Arizona is that's not much water and it's going to get hot. That's not much water and it's going to get hot. That's a little bit more water, but it's still going to get hot. But the automatic refills, you actually aren't going to be able to observe how much water your animal is drinking. If we're entering a colic episode or your donkey's feeling a little off, one of the biggest indicators is going to be water consumption. You won't know what their water consumption is. In fact, a lot of animals will avoid drinking out of these automatic waterers. They get too hot. They have to push these metal dispensers a lot of the times, and they just won't. Of course, you're going to need to feed your long ears, so you're going to need a quality grass hay and straw. See what's in your area. This is Bermuda. This is really nice Bermuda. It's super soft. It's a little bit longer, some of the finer stems. They're going to really like this stuff. And a quality straw. This is great. This is clean. Make sure you have those. Keep them elevated off the ground, such as these pallets, and covered. Because we want our animals eating for as long as possible, but donkeys tend to put on weight pretty quickly, so we don't want to just load them with a bunch of feed. We want to slow down how quickly they're eating. By doing that, we're making sure that they have food all throughout their digestive tract for longer, which keeps the ulcers at bay because their stomach acid has something to digest, and it keeps their gut biome really happy. The best way to accomplish that is through feed nets. Even if you've got a bucket to put their hay in, I always recommend a feed net to kind of slow down that consumption. Pay attention to the size of the openings. This one is already kind of a little bit open. This has a bigger, more of a 2-inch opening. Might be a little bit big for donkeys, but also really good if you are bringing home a fresh BLM who's not used to a hay net. Offer them some food in their bucket, then put the rest in this hay net. The bigger openings are going to train them how to use a hay net, and then you can switch to a 1-inch or a 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch, whatever kind of works. So hay nets are going to help slow down how quickly they are eating, lets them digest everything better, keeps that gut biome really happy. Another thing that is really good, I recommend it because donkeys eat so little. Sometimes, especially if you're new to owning donkeys and feeding them yourself, it can be really hard to weigh out the tiny amount of hay that they need. Again, they only need 1 to 1.5% of their body weight, and a pretty average size BLM only weighs 425 pounds. So you're talking about 4 pounds a day of hay. You're feeding 3 times a day. That's, just over 1 pound. Scales. Those are something I highly recommend to weigh, yes, each and every feeding. Once you get into rhythm, it really doesn't take that long. There are a lot of different scales. There's luggage scales. This is another version of a luggage scale. This is just a hanging scale. It doesn't require any batteries. It's nice. Of course, there are digital ones you can get. You can get a digital fish scale. That's going to, have that really sensitive weight that you need, but weighing all your hay to make sure your donkey isn't getting too much or too little. I don't weigh straw. You don't necessarily need to weigh straw. It's that filler snack. It's not going to be as calorie heavy, even though a donkey is more efficient than a horse in its digesting. It doesn't necessarily need the straw weighed unless you're starting to see a problem with its weight. Of course, you're going to need to clean up the manure. It's going to keep your fly population down. It's going to keep your animal from recycling worms. It's going to keep your place cleaner. It just looks better. Keeps the hooves healthier as they're not wading through. It's going to help with property drainage. There are several different types of manure rakes, muck rakes to pick from. What's nice is they do have these interchangeable heads because inevitably your tines will break over time. There are jokes and memes about it. I believe it's always these two, or at least it is for me. You can get metal handled ones. There are metal handled ones that have a little bit of a bend and angle to them. There are these wooden handle ones. There's some with baskets that are a little smaller. There's some with these larger baskets down here. That's all personal preference. Truly, this is my favorite. It's a metal handle. I don't have to worry about it breaking. I swap out the tine colors. I have one color of tines for travel, one color of tines for at home. Personal preference. A lot of people like the wooden handle. Some people like the bent handle. We talked about manure rakes and how you're going to need one to keep your area clean, whether it's a stall, a pen, a pasture, a paddock, whatever the situation is. Of course, once you've scooped it, what do you do with it? A lot of people will use those, like I said, the rope handle buckets, where you will scoop the manure, you put it in the rope handle bucket, and then you can have the rope handle bucket in various things. A wheelbarrow, one of these carts, this cart, these are four-wheeled carts. Any of these work because then you can bring it to your trash bin, your dumpster, whatever the situation is that hauls your manure off, dump that bucket and go back and get it. Of course, what I do is I have a wheelbarrow. They come in 2 wheels or 4 wheel, 1 wheel, not 4 wheels. 4 wheels would be a cart. They come in 2 wheel or the classic 1 wheel version of a wheelbarrow. You can put your manure in, bring it to the dumpster, dump it next to it, re-scoop it, or have a ramp system. Again, whatever kind of works for you. The thing I will caution is whatever you are using for manure, please do not use for water and food. Keep those separate. If this is my hay cart because I'm moving Bermuda or teff in this cart, I don't want to use manure in here. I don't want to clean my stalls and use this cart. If this is my manure cart, I don't want to put hay in here. Keep them separate to keep them clean, keep your animals healthy. If you're in the Phoenix area, the best halter selection, especially for donkeys, is going to be here at Karsten's Ace Hardware. My favorite part. I love tack. I love custom tack. I love fun colors. I like to have matchy. So this is the part I get really excited about when bringing home a new animal, or if I just want a treat for my current animals. Tons of halters here and a lot of different choices. And I want to go over all the options that we have. Of course, you need to know what size your animal is. A lot of these are going to be built for horses. Most BLMs tend to fit in a yearling size halter for those weaver halters or do more halters. A couple of companies might have a cob size, and it's going to depend how wide is their head. If you're unsure, go with a yearling size. They're pretty adaptable. Minis, of course, are going to need something smaller. Your mammoths might need something bigger. If your animal is already halter trained, you could ask who currently has your animal what size to pick up. These halters are nylon halters. They're flat strap nylon halters. You're going to see a couple of different styles even within these nylon halters. These ones are called non-adjustable. That doesn't mean that the crown piece is not adjustable. What it means is down here by the chin is this solid ring. This is not adjustable. I prefer these because of how they move on my animals' heads. The ring doesn't slide up. Down here we have some of those adjustable halters, and I'm going to take one off the shelf so you can see it. This is a floating ring. You can adjust the size of the chin area, which adjusts the circumference of the nose. The only reason I don't really prefer these is sometimes this ring comes up, or inevitably what will happen is the ring will come and get stuck like this. It can be a little hard to cue. Some people really prefer these. It can give you a more precise fit for an off-the-shelf halter. That's a personal preference and how well your animal leads preference. But those are the main types of nylon flat strap halters. This actually happens to be a size yearling in Weaver. Nice red color. There are a ton of options when it comes to color. Most of these patterned ones, unfortunately, are a little bit too large for BLMs, much too large for minis. Can work for some of your larger BLMs or standards. Tons of halter colors. There are also, before we get into leads, I'm going to talk about these rope halters. Take one off the shelf. So these rope halters are made from one solid piece of rope. They tie at the top. There is a specific way to tie them. Make sure you know how to do it. They tend to be a little bit more severe. The firmer and thinner the rope, the harsher the halter, especially at the pole pressure. A lot of donkeys don't necessarily like this type of pole pressure, but there are a lot of trainers who prefer these. Any of the rope halters that tend to have knots on the noseband, or this is the back of the halter, but if there were multiple knots on this noseband, that's a more severe halter. A lot of donkeys really truly just do really well. These are tiny little mini halters. Just do really well in these, oh no, flat strap nylon halters. When it comes to lead ropes, you can get a matching one. You can be mismatching. Pains me if you want to be mismatching, but you can be. There are these nylon lead ropes. They will kind of burn your hand as they pull through them. Not my first recommendation. I prefer a cotton lead rope. It's a little bit softer. They're more flexible. They tend to be a little bit lighter weight as well. I don't like going longer than a 10-foot. Truly, often I like an 8-foot lead rope. You don't need it to be too long because I'm going to have so much extra rope in my hands. That gets cumbersome. It can get dangerous. For just basic work with your animal, 10-foot, that's fine. 8-foot is great. First aid is going to be really important to have on hand. You don't have to come and buy the entire shelf stock, as tempting as it might be to have everything you could possibly need on hand at once. You just kind of want a basic first aid on hand. And of course, if you end up needing something more, you're probably either calling the vet or come here. They've got one of the best first aid selections, or just make note of where your feed store is that's going to have a nice selection. But have some basic items on hand. Again, love some colors. Vet wrap comes in a ton of different colors. Pick your favorites. I'd have 2 to 3 rolls on hand. Whatever color suits your fancy. Make fun designs if you ever have to use it. Vet wrap is really handy. Keep that on hand to go with the vet wrap and go on top of it. This is called Elasticon. 3M makes the name brand. It's just a side note, so you might see it referred to as other things. It's similar to vet wrap. It's sticky on the inside, so a lot of times you'll see it on the outside of vet wrap to kind of keep things together, or at the top or at the bottom. Vet wrap will stick to itself, but it has no actual adhesive. This has adhesive on the back, so kind of like a very flexible bandage. But of course, this doesn't go directly on the wound. That doesn't go directly on the wound. You're going to need some type of bandaging or padding. They have different poultices, different bandages here, syringe gauze. All of those are going to be really important if you've got a little cut or abrasion. Wound care, I really like Vetricin. This is a great one. What's really nice is it's not an aerosol can, so it's not going to make that hiss sound. This is just a quick spray. You can get it on pretty easy. If your animal's still a little leery of spray, they're like, oh man, I'm not even gonna do fly spray. They do make gel versions of it. It's a little bit more expensive, but you can always put it on a little gauze pad, wipe it on, or a glove, wipe it on. So there are different solutions. I will say you'll hear this used a lot. It's called Wonder Dust. It's an old cowboy one. We don't recommend it. It's old medicine, not the best. All of these, Equiderma, Vetricin, these are all great to have on hand. Basic wound kit is just going to include bandaging, gauze, sterile pads, some type of antibiotic, or just cleansing gel or liquid. If you live in a sandy environment such as Arizona or a lot of the Southwest, or kind of, I mean, I do kind of recommend it everywhere, but especially important for sand is going to be psyllium. Giving psyllium monthly is going to help keep your animal's digestive tract clear of sand, which is going to help prevent sand colic. Sand colic can result in surgery or death, so we want to do what we can to avoid it. How do we avoid it? Psyllium. There are all different types of psyllium products. In fact, you can see here they have a lovely selection. EquiAid, Vet Value, Sand Clear, Sand Rid, Sand Purge. They've got another brand down here. A lot of different psyllium products. What you are looking for is a product, because we're talking long ears and they're sensitive to sugars and molasses. You don't want to find a product that's necessarily advertising a candy apple. This one, if we look at the ingredients, it contains cane molasses and brown sugar and alfalfa, not just psyllium, and that's going to not be great for your donkey. What we do like about this product, however, is this little label here. It is the National Animal Supplement Council, meaning there has been testing on this. There has been some type of control done to this. So that is great that it has that label. Right next door, we see the Dervet. It has the same label, looks a little different on the yellow, but this one It has some natural flavors. You'll see it's like natural apple flavored. But if we read the ingredient list on the back, there's no molasses, there's no sugar. This is a great product for psyllium. It's just basically psyllium. Of course, like I said, there are different brands. Just turn them around. Find which one has the most psyllium, least sugar, if any sugar. Pick by price, pick by label at that point, whatever suits your fancy. Summers can get really hot. Traveling can be really hard on your animal. That's where electrolytes come into play. It's going to help them drink water. It's going to help replace all of those, the salt, some of the vitamins, some of the minerals in their body. Tons of different electrolyte types. Some electrolytes are going to have more sugar than others. What I tend to avoid, because as we do more research about artificial dyes, we start to learn that they're not great. I tend to go for these natural ones. We talked about electrolytes and how that replenishes a lot of what your donkey needs. Some people are going to keep those electrolytes available 24/7. Some people might only give them right before a trip or something really stressful or when it's really hot outside. But one thing that does need to be available to your donkey pretty much 24/7, salt. You're going to see there are quite a few selections here. The best recommendation, just this plain white salt. It comes in these 50-pound blocks, or you can get a little 4-pound brick of it. Be careful when picking out your salts. You're going to see, yes, there's the plain white, which is just plain white table salt, kind of compressed. You're also going to see trace mineral salt blocks, which we have the big blocks and the little bricks. You're going to see all stock blocks. You're going to see a lot of different things. All stock is not great. Different species have different nutritional needs. You can't feed everything from a sheep to a goat to a horse to a donkey to a mule to a cow or bull cattle, all within the same kind of mineral and supplementation tub or brick. Do stay away from anything with sulfur. The best recommendation, kind of stick to these either white ones or Redmond rock. They're Himalayan style kind of salt rocks. They do, give me a second, I'll get one for you. They do truly look like rocks. This one's a little bit dusty. It's outside here, but it, just brush that off and it's good to go. BLM donkeys do tend to look at this and go, I'm not licking a rock. That's fair. That's unnatural. A lot of BLM donkeys do just prefer these white ones, but these are good. Of course, if you want to kind of keep them off the ground and a little elevated, they do sell holders. They are metal, and when metal gets in contact with salt and water, they will eventually rust out. There are plastic dishes as well, or Redmond and a couple of other places too make salt on a rope. So you can hang this up. It keeps it clean, keeps it looking different. Your donkey might investigate it more. Buy a couple of different ones. Maybe get a small salt on a rope. Maybe get, a white brick. You could get a trace mineral brick, put them out there like a little salt bar, see which ones they prefer. Most donkeys seem to prefer just kind of the white or these Redmond rocks. You'll hear some people say that they cannot consume these compressed salt blocks and bricks. That is inaccurate. They can, they do. It might take them a little longer than just taking a mouthful of loose table salt. However, it kind of becomes a little bit of an enrichment activity. We have our food and then we go and we lick our salt for a little bit. A big problem that a lot of donkey owners complain about are flies. A lot of donkeys are really prone to fly strike on their legs. One way we can help prevent fly strike and other fly and pest problems, manure management, but also fly spray. Tons of types to choose from. You're going to want to pay attention to what you need it for. If I'm hiking where there's going to be a lot of ticks and it might be wet kind of weather where, fly spray can come off easily, I don't want a water-based, I want an oil-based. If we're talking, hey, I just need one in the backyard for the animal I'm bringing home, water-based is fine. Do pay attention to how often it says to apply your fly spray. These are poisons. Be careful when you're applying your fly spray. These natural ones you can apply more frequently. They might work well, they might not. It's going to depend on your area and it's going to depend on the flies. In Arizona, a lot of flies have become pretty resistant to fly spray. There are cheaper ones, such as the Nullify by Piranha, but there's also more expensive, such as the Piranha Wipe and Spray. You're going to see a bunch of different brands. Ultimately, this will come down to how frequently you can apply it, what the flies are like at your place, and personal preference. There are going to be people who you don't want any of the chemicals, you only want all natural. There will be people who say, give me all the chemicals, I'm going to leave the all natural at home, poison is where it's at. Read the labels, Just pay attention to how you're applying it. Of course, to go along with your fly spray to protect their eyes and, just helps with sun protection too. Or if you have a spotted donkey or a mule with some white on its face or a donkey with white on its face, that pink skin underneath, a fly mask is really going to help. Again, there is a large selection for fly masks. Mine tend to be toys. I tend to go for a little bit on the cheaper side, just knowing I am going to have to replace them pretty frequently. The biggest thing to pay attention to with fly masks are with ears or without ears. With ears that are horse ears are going to be a problem because your donkey has larger ears than a horse. I go for the without ears. Don't forget your donkey uses its ears to cool down in the heat, just like a rabbit does, just like those jackrabbits have large ears. They have large ears to help keep them cool. I don't like the idea of covering their ears. Also, just these won't fit. They do make long ear fly masks with the donkey size ears. Those tend to be an online special order. It's really easy just to get those ear-free ones, especially if your donkey is new to wearing a fly mask. There are various types. You can get this super mask. It's got fun colors. It's got some fuzz on there. And of course, there are ones that are going to start to have patterns. Cashel makes them, the Crusader masks. A little bit of personal preference, a little bit of your donkey's personal preference. Donkeys respond really well to positive reinforcement when training, so a great way to train your donkey is treats with positive reinforcement. Of course, there are so many treats to pick from, and as we keep reiterating, donkeys are sensitive to sugar. What's great about this particular store is they do have low sugar treats labeled as low sugar to make reading the labels a little bit easier. But as with anything, as you might do with treats for yourself, cookies or what have you in the grocery store, turn them around, read your ingredient list. Just like human treats, just like cookies, just like any human food, it's going to list the ingredients in order of amount found within the treat itself. So this one, the very first ingredient, the highest amount, is Timothy grass, followed by sunflower seed meal, salt, peppermint oil, and natural flavors. Not a lot of sugar in this, just the sugar that's coming from the Timothy. These are really good. However, as appealing as these look to me, as I do love gingerbread cookies, so I'm a big molasses person, I do love peppermint, these are going to be really high in sugar. No, for your donkey. So go through, take a look at some of these treats. The ones we recommend are these low sugar ones. Equa treats are all low sugar. These are just flaxseed. That's a great way to get some flax into your donkey's diet, but also give them a little treat in the process. Coming through, looking at the treats some more, these NutriGood low sugar snacks are low sugar, low calorie. They're mostly beet pulp. They are a great training treat for your donkeys. Of course, you can also use plain Bermuda, plain Timothy pellets that does not contain molasses. You will see items such as these Jolly Stall boredom busters, essentially. What this is just a cake of sugar. All this is it's carrot flavored sugar. In fact, if you read the ingredients, the first ingredient is molasses. This is just sugar. There's a couple of problems with this. A, too much sugar for your donkey. No, they won't just have a lick and then go away. They will go at this until it's gone. And a lot of animals will figure out how to get a buddy to hold it for them while the other one eats it. The other problem with these is as they eat it, as it's dripping down because it's getting wet, they're taking bites out of it, it will fall into the sand. Now you have an animal consuming sand. No. As much as I love shopping for tack, I also love shopping for grooming supplies because once again, we can get a lot of really fun colors and you're going to need various brushes. One brush alone isn't going to cut it. So you can start with a grooming tote. These are really great totes. Let me take one of these hard plastic ones down. I do like the hard plastic ones because you can wash them, clean them out. You can see they've got different compartments. You can even stick hoof picks here. These are really good little, you got your handle, good to go grooming totes. Pretty standard. They can also sit on a fence rail. That's why they've got that center piece. Or, I have done in the past, and I think I do still have a fabric one. This kind of looks like a little toolbox. Sometimes I do use toolboxes. Anything to kind of hold all of your grooming equipment and keep it all in one place and not just everywhere. And then you just grab it and go and bring it with you. So when it comes to grooming, you are going to need various brushes. One won't one won't do the job of everything. You will need something to kind of shed with. You'll see shedding brushes like this. You know, you can use them a little bit like a curry. You can use them to scrape. They come coiled. They also have the classic longer design that can come together. It's got a little clip here to where you put it. And those are great shedding tools. Weaver brushes, they look like a little rake. Those are really good for winter hair. I also really, for donkey coats, like just hairbrushes, but these work for manes and tails as well. I know your donkey's mane is really short, but these hairbrushes are good. Again, we can get fun colors. We can get all different types, all different styles. Yeah, you could use a human hairbrush too. I like these because they are a party, but whatever you prefer. Then you have body brushes. These are going to be used to kind of get dirt off, especially if you're going to put a pack saddle on later or any type of equipment. You pay attention to the bristles. Stiffer synthetic ones are going to be better for getting that initial dirt coat off, or if they've got some mud or some hay on them, they've laid down, they've rolled. Don't really want this on a face. It's pretty stiff. It's not as stiff as some. Trying to find one that's really stiff. Just feel them, feel where they might go. So, you know, you've got some stiffer bristles. Then this one is extremely soft. It's going to be a great brush for around the face. You can always, handy dandy fly spray here. If your donkey's a little scared of the fly spray noise, bloop, spray some fly spray, brush it gently on their legs or on their body. Again, line their mucous membranes, poison. Brushes, really handy, all different sizes, colors. This really good little fly spray face brush. You're going to need multiple ones. Find what works for you and what works for your donkey. Maybe you want a handle. These are pretty standard. This is a really nice stiff bristled brush. Really good to actually have wood burned too. You can get your donkey's name on there. You can get some fun little art on there, a little bit of pyrography. Kind of brush off all of that dirt. Another really important thing in there down here, so I'm going to get down low, a hoof pick. Couple of different types. These are pretty standard. They've got brush, so you can brush the outside of the hoof, you can brush the inside, the sole. Really nice and narrow, really good for those mini feet. I also really enjoy these very standard hoof picks. I throw them in my hiking packs. I keep them in my trailer. I have one in my car, my general car that doesn't haul trailers. Why? I carry them everywhere. They're very inexpensive, and you never know when you kind of need one. And of course, if you've got a little bit bigger of a donkey, these are really good. They've just got really good leverage and handle to them. They're great hoof picks. You're going to need a hoof pick. Tons of selections, tons of grooming stuff. Donkeys aren't really big on baths. You don't have to worry about some of these, but you know, some of these are also just great little massager tools. So you can hang out, brush your donkey, have a good time, have some bonding. One of the most popular questions that you'll see is, what wormer do I give my donkey? And my question is, well, what kind of worms does your donkey have? The only way to know is to have a fecal done. Typically, you take in a sample of manure to your veterinarian. They take a look, they see what types of worms are there, and then they can come up with a worming plan for you. So you will know, are you giving ivermectin? Are you giving the Panacure? The only advice I'm going to give to wormer right now, besides talk to your vet and develop a plan, is don't overworm, don't worm blindly, and do avoid Quest. Thanks for watching in on things to bring home your new long ear companions with the help of Karsten's Ace Hardware.